Welcome to my channel, where mysteries are uncovered and truths come to light. If you're captivated by the world of crime and the intricacies of human behavior, you've found the right place. Here, we dive deep into real-life cases that have gripped the world, examining the evidence and unraveling the secrets behind them. Join me as we explore these compelling cases and seek to understand the complexities that lie beneath the surface. In the early hours of New Year's Day, 2023, Ana Walshe, a 39-year-old real estate executive and mother of three from Cohasset, Massachusetts, vanished without a trace. Her sudden disappearance sent shockwaves through her tight-knit community and soon became the focus of a nationwide investigation. Before we begin, please be aware that this video contains descriptions of real-life events, including physical, sexual, and psychological violence, death, criminal behavior, crime scene details, and other graphic and disturbing content that may not be suitable for all viewers. Viewer discretion is strongly advised, as some may find these topics distressing or triggering. If you find the content distressing, we recommend stopping the video, as your well-being is important to us. Ana Walshe's story begins far from the United States, in Belgrade, Serbia. Born in the early 1980s, Ana grew up during a tumultuous time for the region. As a child, she witnessed the collapse of Yugoslavia and the conflicts that followed, but throughout it all, Ana remained determined to carve out a brighter future for herself. Her early years were spent navigating a country undergoing major political and social changes, yet she remained a driven and optimistic young girl with dreams far beyond the borders of her homeland. In her teenage years, Ana's ambition set her apart. Described by those who knew her as both hardworking and resilient, Ana dreamed of escaping the difficulties of her environment to find success abroad. She was academically focused and fluent in several languages, which would later serve her well. After finishing high school in Serbia, she attended the prestigious University of Belgrade, where she pursued a degree in languages and communications, always with her eye on bigger opportunities. In her mid-20s, Ana's dream of moving to the United States became a reality. She secured a work visa and arrived in America with nothing but a suitcase, her education, and a relentless drive to succeed. Like many immigrants, Ana's first years in the U.S. were challenging. She took on a variety of jobs to support herself, from working as a housekeeper to taking administrative roles in offices. Despite the struggles, Ana never lost sight of her goals. Her breakthrough came when she began working in hospitality and real estate in Boston. She quickly moved up the ranks due to her professionalism, charisma, and deep understanding of people. Real estate, in particular, proved to be Ana's true calling. She became known for her ability to close difficult deals and was soon working on high-profile properties, traveling between Massachusetts and Washington, D.C. It was during this time that Ana met Brian Walshe. The couple's introduction was typical of a modern love story, through mutual friends and shared social circles in Boston. Brian, the son of a well-off family, had a more checkered past, including legal troubles that would later become significant. Despite this, Ana and Brian formed a deep connection and quickly fell in love. In 2015, the couple married in a beautiful ceremony that reflected their optimism about their future together. They soon started a family, welcoming 3 children into their lives. To the outside world, Ana's life appeared to be the American dream come true, an immigrant who had built a successful career, married a man from a prominent family, and was raising a young family in a beautiful home. However, behind the scenes, tension was brewing. As Ana's career in real estate continued to soar, Brian's life was plagued by financial and legal issues. Despite his charm, Brian was embroiled in art fraud schemes and legal battles that began to strain their relationship. Ana, ever the optimist, focused on her career and her children, making frequent trips to Washington, D.C. for work while juggling life as a mother of 3. Her success in real estate allowed the family to live comfortably, but the pressures of their lives began to take a toll on their marriage. The first day of the new year, January 1, 2023, started like any other holiday for the Walshe family. They had just celebrated New Year's Eve together in their quiet home in Cohasset, Massachusetts. To those around them, Ana and Brian Walshe appeared to be a normal, loving couple, doting on their 3 young children and preparing for the year ahead. But what happened next would leave Ana's family, friends, and the community reeling. According to Brian, Ana woke up early on New Year's Day, packed a bag, and told him she needed to head to the airport for a work trip to Washington, D.C. Ana worked as a real estate executive, often traveling between Massachusetts and D.C. for business. Brian claimed she left the house between 4 o'clock and 5 a.m., catching a ride with a car service. It seemed like a normal departure for Ana, who frequently made such trips. However, as the days passed, troubling signs began to emerge. Ana had planned to fly to D.C. for an important meeting that was scheduled for January 4, but she never showed up. Her colleagues, concerned after failing to reach her by phone or email, reported her missing to both the Washington, D.C. and Cohasset police departments. At this point, Ana had been missing for 3 days. The investigation began with a routine check of Ana's travel records, but there was no indication that she had ever boarded a flight to D.C. In fact, there were no records of any car service picking her up from the Walshe residence. The more police dug into the details of that morning, the more things didn't add up. When authorities spoke with Brian Walshe, they were met with a confusing and inconsistent story. Brian claimed that after Ana left, he had gone about his day as usual, running errands and spending time with their children. But as investigators began to look deeper, they uncovered several red flags. Brian did not report his wife missing, and his behavior in the days following her disappearance became increasingly suspicious. Days passed with no sign of Ana, and authorities expanded their search. They combed through wooded areas around the Walshe home and the nearby town of Cohasset. Volunteers from the community joined the search, hoping to bring Ana home. Despite their best efforts, no trace of her was found. Back at the Walshe home, investigators were growing increasingly concerned about Brian's actions. His lack of cooperation and vague responses raised alarm bells, and it became clear that Ana's disappearance wasn't simply a case of someone who had gone off the grid. Something far more sinister was beginning to take shape. Brian Walshe's explanations grew shakier with every conversation, and investigators knew they needed to dig deeper into the couple's private lives. What they found next would change the direction of the investigation entirely and cast a dark shadow over the man who had claimed to love Ana. As days turned into weeks, the investigation into Ana Walshe's disappearance grew more intense. With each passing day, the hope of finding her alive dwindled. The search effort expanded from the immediate area surrounding the Walshe home to include nearby forests, parks, and even dumpsters. As investigators scrutinized every lead, a growing sense of unease began to build around Brian Walshe's behavior and his conflicting statements. Police were initially stumped by the lack of evidence pointing to Ana's whereabouts. She had simply vanished. But then, Brian Walshe's story began to fall apart. Investigators found no evidence of Ana taking a car service to the airport on January 1, 2023, as Brian had claimed. No flights had been booked in her name, and there was no record of her traveling to Washington, D.C. for work as she had supposedly planned. Suspicion quickly shifted toward Brian, who had become increasingly evasive in his interactions with law enforcement. The turning point in the investigation came when detectives uncovered chilling surveillance footage. Just days after Ana was reported missing, Brian was caught on camera at a Home Depot in nearby Rockland, Massachusetts. He was seen purchasing an array of cleaning supplies, including a mop, buckets, tarps, protective suits, tape, and several gallons of cleaning fluid, items that would later be considered critical to the investigation. Brian's behavior on this trip raised immediate red flags. He paid in cash and was seen wearing a mask and gloves, clearly trying to avoid drawing attention to himself. When asked by police about his movements in the days after Ana's disappearance, Brian had failed to mention this suspicious shopping spree. The Home Depot footage now suggested that Brian had been preparing for something far more sinister than just cleaning his house. The investigation took a dark turn when police began searching dumpsters near the Walshe family home and along Brian's known travel routes. In a nearby trash processing facility, they made a gruesome discovery: blood-stained items, a hacksaw, used cleaning gloves, and a rug. Forensic analysis later confirmed that the blood on the items matched Ana Walshe's DNA. This evidence was damning, suggesting not only that Ana had been harmed but that Brian had gone to great lengths to conceal her death. As investigators dug further into Brian's activities, they uncovered even more disturbing information. A search of Brian's internet history revealed a series of deeply incriminating searches, all made in the days immediately following Ana's disappearance. The searches included phrases like "how to dismember a body" and "how to dispose of a 115-pound woman's body." The chilling specificity of these queries left little room for doubt in the minds of investigators. Back at the Walshe home, police executed multiple search warrants, combing through every corner of the house for more clues. Though the house appeared clean on the surface, forensic teams found traces of blood in the basement, further linking Brian to the crime. The investigation had shifted from a missing persons case to a homicide investigation, and Brian Walshe was now the prime suspect. On January 17, 2023, just 2 weeks after Ana's disappearance, Brian Walshe was arrested and charged with misleading a police investigation. Authorities were building a strong case against him, connecting the dots between the blood evidence, his incriminating purchases, and the disturbing search history. Although Ana's body had yet to be found, investigators believed they had enough evidence to charge Brian with her murder. The question now was no longer about Ana's whereabouts, but rather about how, and why, Brian Walshe may have killed his wife. The chilling evidence painted a horrifying picture of what might have happened to Ana. Her husband, the man she had loved and built a life with, was now at the center of a gruesome investigation. The shocking discoveries of blood, tools, and Brian's online searches left little doubt in the public's mind that something terrible had happened. As the evidence piled up, one thing became increasingly clear: this was no accident. The case had now entered the realm of a full-fledged murder investigation. As the investigation into Ana Walshe's disappearance gathered momentum, all eyes turned to her husband, Brian Walshe. The mounting evidence, from the suspicious Home Depot purchases to the bloody items found in nearby dumpsters, painted an increasingly grim picture of his involvement. On January 17, 2023, just 2 weeks after Ana was reported missing, Brian Walshe was arrested and charged with misleading a police investigation. However, as investigators continued to unravel the mystery, it became clear that this was only the beginning. At his first court appearance, Brian Walshe pled not guilty to the initial charges of misleading investigators. Standing before the judge, he remained composed, but the evidence against him was stacking up rapidly. Prosecutors laid out the timeline of his suspicious behavior: his unreported trip to Home Depot, the disturbing internet searches, and his failure to notify police when Ana didn't return home. The portrait that emerged was not of a grieving husband but of a man trying to cover his tracks. Prosecutors argued that Brian's deception was intentional, a calculated effort to throw investigators off the trail. From the very beginning, his version of events had been riddled with inconsistencies. He claimed Ana had left for the airport early on January 1, but there were no records of her booking a flight, no Uber pickups, and no signs that she had ever left the house that morning. The prosecution made it clear that Brian's story simply didn't add up. But even more damning were the physical pieces of evidence tying Brian to Ana's likely death. The blood-stained items found in the trash were key. The DNA evidence confirmed what everyone had feared: the blood belonged to Ana. The discovery of a hacksaw and other tools, combined with Brian's bizarre internet searches about dismembering and disposing of a body, strongly suggested that a terrible crime had taken place inside the Walshe home. Investigators also turned their attention to the Walshe home itself, where further searches revealed unsettling traces of blood in the basement. Forensic teams combed through every inch of the property, finding more signs of a violent act. Though Ana's body had yet to be recovered, the blood evidence told a disturbing story, one that pointed directly at Brian. The community was shaken by these revelations. Friends of Ana, who had once admired the couple for their seemingly perfect life, were left grappling with the horrifying reality that Ana was likely gone, and that her husband may have been responsible. Vigils were held in her honor, with candles lit and flowers left at her doorstep as the world waited for answers. With Brian now charged with his wife's murder, the legal process moved forward. The charges painted a chilling picture of a man who not only killed his wife, but tried desperately to cover it up. Prosecutors contended that the crime had been premeditated, pointing to the searches Brian had conducted on his computer before and after Anna's disappearance. His searches ranged from how to dispose of a body to what is the best way to clean blood. These damning digital breadcrumbs revealed a man attempting to eliminate any trace of his wife's existence. But perhaps the most troubling aspect of the case was that despite all the evidence, Anna's body had still not been found. The prosecution was building a case without a critical piece of physical proof, making this a complex and challenging murder case. Despite this, the prosecution felt confident that the combination of forensic evidence, Brian's contradictory statements, and his erratic behavior after Anna's disappearance would be enough to convict him. The case was now entering its most critical stage, with the media, the community, and Anna's family all awaiting justice. As Brian Walshe awaits trial, one question continues to haunt the public: what really happened to Ana? The search for her body remains ongoing, and her loved ones are left grieving without closure. While Brian maintains his innocence, the evidence tells a different story, one of a husband whose lies unraveled and whose dark secrets were revealed. As the case moves closer to trial, the world will be watching, hoping that justice will be served for Ana Walshe. With Brian Walshe now facing a murder charge, the case that had captured national attention was heading to trial. But without Anna's body, the prosecution faced an uphill battle. While the evidence was overwhelming, the lack of a body presented a significant challenge in securing a conviction. This type of case, often referred to as a no-body murder trial, requires prosecutors to rely heavily on circumstantial evidence, forensic findings, and behavioral patterns to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt. Despite the difficulties, the prosecution felt confident in their case. Brian Walshe's actions in the days leading up to and following Anna's disappearance were not just suspicious, they were incriminating. The forensic evidence was a key component. Blood matching Anna's DNA was found not only on the items recovered from the trash, but also in the basement of their home. The fact that Brian had purchased cleaning supplies, tarps, and a hacksaw just days after Ana went missing indicated that he was attempting to cover up a violent crime. As the case moved forward, the emotional toll on Anna's family and friends became more visible. Her 3 young children were left without a mother, and now their father faced the possibility of life behind bars. Anna's friends described her as a loving, hard-working, and devoted mother, and they struggled to comprehend how her life could have been cut so tragically short. Vigils were held in Anna's memory, with candles lit and flowers left in front of her home. The public was shocked, and the media kept the story in the national spotlight as each new development unfolded. However, legal experts pointed out that despite the lack of a body, the amount of circumstantial evidence against Brian was overwhelming. The forensic evidence, coupled with his internet searches and suspicious behavior, made it difficult for anyone to believe Ana had simply disappeared of her own free will. Brian had failed to report his wife missing, had been caught lying to investigators, and was seen making purchases that pointed to a violent cover-up. Even though the defense attempted to cast doubt on the case, it was clear that Brian had an uphill battle ahead. As the trial progressed, Anna's family and friends continued to hold out hope for justice. They attended every hearing, their faces filled with a mixture of grief and determination. For them, the trial wasn't just about convicting Brian, it was about finding closure for Anna's tragic and senseless loss. Anna's loved ones made emotional pleas for anyone with information to come forward, while holding on to the hope that someday, her body might be found and they could properly lay her to rest. As Brian Walshe awaits his fate, the world continues to watch. With a complex and deeply emotional trial underway, Anna's family seeks justice for the mother, friend, and professional they lost too soon. While the evidence points strongly in one direction, the legal process remains fraught with uncertainty. The case is far from over, and as the trial unfolds, Ana Walshe's loved ones can only hope that the truth will finally come to light, and justice will be served. As the trial unfolds and the evidence is laid bare, one thing remains painfully clear: Ana Walshe was more than just a name in a headline. She was a mother, a friend, and a driven professional whose life was senselessly taken away. The investigation into her disappearance has gripped the public, not just for its disturbing details, but because it shattered the facade of a seemingly perfect life. For Ana's family, friends, and the community, the search for justice continues. They are haunted by the unanswered questions: what really happened on that fateful night, and will Ana's body ever be found? Though the prosecution has presented a strong case, the weight of a no-body trial leaves many lingering uncertainties. Still, the blood, the disturbing internet searches, and Brian's erratic behavior all tell a chilling story of betrayal and violence. As the trial nears its conclusion, Ana's loved ones wait for justice with a heavy heart. But even as they seek closure, they also celebrate the life of a woman who had so much more to give. The world may never fully understand the motives behind this senseless tragedy, but what remains certain is that Ana's legacy will not be forgotten. Her story is a reminder that even in the face of unimaginable loss, the human spirit's resilience endures. As the legal system works its way toward a verdict, the memory of Ana Walshe will continue to inspire those who knew her, and perhaps, will serve as a stark warning of the hidden darkness that can sometimes lie behind closed doors. We appreciate you taking the time to watch this video and learn more about Ana Walshe's life, her tragic disappearance, and the ongoing search for justice. Ana was a beloved mother, friend, and professional who touched the lives of so many around her. While her story is heartbreaking, we hope it serves as a reminder of the importance of seeking help and supporting those in need. Let us continue to honor Ana's memory, not only by remembering the vibrant life she led but by standing with her family, friends, and loved ones as they fight for justice. Thank you for being part of this important conversation.